Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Enigmatic Entertainment back again with another video. This time is the fourth part in the Kid Cudi album review series, starting with Man on the Moon 1, Man on the Moon 2, In the Cud, so now his fourth solo album, Satellite Flight, The Journey to Mother Moon. This is the fourth studio album by Kid Cudi. It was released in 2014, following up In the Cud, released in 2013, and apparently, according to a tweet that Cudi sent out shortly before the album release, this was meant to be like a bridge between In the Cud and Man on the Moon 3. And apparently, this was also meant to be an EP at first, but eventually evolved into a full length LP instead. So, track 1 is Destination Mother Moon. This starts the album off, perhaps where In the Cud's closing track, which was an instrumental track, just like this one is, finished. This sets the tone for the rest of the album. It's dark, airy, atmospheric, and really shows that Cudi is still embracing that whole Man on the Moon idea. Hence the title, Destination Mother Moon. In my mind, I can see stars, a spaceship, a man on a mission, Cudi in like astronaut gear or something like that, just flying off. Destination Mother Moon. Not a bad track. Like I said, sets the tone for the album, and that leads right into track 2, Going to the Ceremony. So, he reached his destination, and he's going to some ceremony now. What is it? Who knows? A wedding? No one knows. This lyrically addresses his drinking habit a bit, his loneliness, coping with substances like alcohol to, really deal with that loneliness and sadness and whatnot. It's also a bit mysterious with the ethereal sounding chorus. He talks about, I don't know where I'm going, it's all happening, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, what? I don't know what's going on, but it ties into the title of Going to the Ceremony, but we don't know what the ceremony is once again. Perhaps it's up to the listener to decide what that ceremony is and where it's at, because Kid Cudi is definitely going somewhere. A lot of these titles have to do with, flight and traveling and things of that nature. But regardless, it's one of my favorite tracks on the album. Sounds real nice and really you can vibe to it and whatnot. And that goes into track 3, Satellite Flight. This is the title track, obviously, and easily my favorite track on the album. It features a sample of Coronado 2 by the group Polaris, another song and group that I've never heard of before, and once again, leave it to Cudi to pick a sample I've never heard of and use that to make a great song. The intro song speaks to, the young man saving the universe from the forces of evil. And I'm just like, okay, so now Cudi's like fighting like what, space warriors or something like that, or kind of reminds me of Man on the Moon 1. How that had narration by Common and whatnot, talking once again about the young man, Cudi, a few years prior, continuing the story. It's pretty cool. I like the continuation. Exploring and saving people kind of makes sense, I guess. He's that person that wants to be a leader to the lonely and the sad. Reference to In the Cud. This is more vibe music by Cudi, space travel references, hums, and typical Kid Cudi stuff, The best part of the song is definitely the break in the later half, with Cudi humming and doing the bridge. It flows so nicely. When I first heard this song, it dropped before the album release, so this song came out probably somewhere in 2013. He posted it on SoundCloud, and it instantly became one of my favorite Kid Cudi songs, like, ever, pretty much. Best track on the album and far outshines everything else on the rest of the album, for me at least. Next up is track 4, Copernicus Landing. This is another instrumental track. Really, I guess, sets the tone for Cudi landing on the moon now. Destination of the Moon, Going to the Ceremony, Satellite Flight, Copernicus Landing. Kind of all makes sense, you know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. It's a bit cohesive with the titles. I like that. This instrumental, doesn't really have any lyrics or anything like that. It does have some backing vocals towards the later part of the song, but that's about it. Once again, it sounds pretty spacey, vibe music. Once again, definitely like most of this album is. If you go on Wikipedia and you look up the genres this album is listed, it says like space rock and synth pop and stuff like that. And if I had to pick something, that's what I would basically call this song, because I have no one else, what kind of genre to put it under, really. But and the rest of the album, really. But not a bad instrumental. I can listen to it, on occasion. Once again, vibe music. Next up is track 5, Balmain Jeans, which I looked it up for, this review and to see what it really is. I just know it's some expensive brand. And apparently it's pronounced Balmain because the N is silent. I did not know that. And I heard this album years ago. I just now learned this from just, checking it up online real quick. I'm going to still be pronouncing it Balmain because that's how I've been doing it. But apparently the correct pronunciation, they say, is Balmain with a silent N. So, Balmain Jeans. This is pretty much like the love song of the album. It features singer Raphael Saadiq, who is the only featured person on this album, which is, very different from the usual Kid Cudi album. Cudi sings about Balmain Jeans, which is apparently, like I said, a ridiculously expensive fashion brand that I never heard of until I first heard this song. And clearly he must be making some money if he's able to afford these, because I was looking at some of the prices and I was just like, whoa, okay then, I'm cool. Hey, my personal feelings about the Balmain prices and all that stuff, I don't really like. I'm not into that high-end fashion kind of stuff personally at all. But that aside, this song itself is quite good. And another standout track, easily one of my favorites on the album, once again, right alongside Satellite Flight and Going to the Ceremony. Cudi speaks to this woman in question, making references to like zooming, which I assume is sex, considering all the other lines. He makes lines on the song like entering her vortex, lick me, lick you, and is like help me take off my Balmain jeans and all that stuff basically. So like, yeah, I can assume safely that this song on the album rather is the sex song. So yeah. What makes it funny though is that like the end of the song, afterwards he's just like, randomly he's just like, thank you. And I'm like, are you thanking the chick or are you thanking the listener? Like, what? You know what I mean? It's just funny. He's like, I guess he's like thanking her for his assistance with his trouser problem, having trouble removing them, you know what I mean? But, hey, great song. Next up is track 6, Too Bad, I Have to Destroy You Now. Longest track on the album. Cudi's actually rapping on this one though, so that's nice. This is the only really song on the album where he's like actually rapping. The rest of the album is mostly singing, humming, or just really just instrumentals. Half this album is pretty much instrumental tracks. This is a nice change of pace from the rest of the album because of that. And although production-wise it's kind of airy and spacey, this continues more of the like shaking the haters off lyrics that he did from like his previous album and whatnot. Shrug the shoulders, get them haters off, you feel me, and all that. I'd like the song more myself personally if the production wasn't so sparse, probably. The chorus has Cudi singing about people who talk trash about him but aren't able to look him in the eyes when he's there in person, and I'm sure that's something that most of us can relate to. I know I definitely can. People always talk trash online. Unfortunately, that's what people do. The anonymity behind it and all that, blah, blah, we get it. Not a bad track, but not my favorite. Mostly due to production. Lyrically, it's cool, it's fine. This is somewhere in the middle of the album for me as far as I'd rank it compared to the other songs. And look at the dang title also. Cudi is definitely aggressive with this title. Because they went from Balmain Jeans to Too Bad I Have to Destroy You Now. And I'm like, damn, okay. Next up is track 7, Internal Bleeding. This is basically the heartbreak song. Cudi repeats this chorus about his internal bleeding, his heart leaking, not being able to stop it. Not much to really break down. Sonically, this is just not a song for me at all. Subject matter-wise, I can relate to it very well. I'm sure a lot of us can relate with heartbreak. And feeling like we don't know how to get over that feeling. I can get why he might want to put a song like this if he was going through a heartbreak at the time and whatnot. But once again, this song just does not do it for me. This is the bottom song on the album for me, if not like bottom 2, pretty much. So, hey. Moving on is track 8, In My Dreams, 2015. Which is funny because this album came out in 2014, but okay. So, as the title says, of course, this is, a 2015 version basically of the In My Dreams song from Man on the Moon 1. That was the intro track. This just sounds like a more spacey kind of version, compared to the original. This is the instrumental as well, of course. It gives the feeling of like a high-tech dream sequence kind of thing, and it has all these beeps and whatnot, reminiscent of some kind of sci-fi movie where you're in a spaceship, and there's like a robotic voice that plays in some parts of the song. And This is a little bit more futuristic and whatnot sounding compared to like the original. And this also serves to be the shortest track on the album, clocking in, I think, under a minute and a half. But hey, Next up is track 9, Return to the Moon Man, original score. This is yet another instrumental track. This one's quite a bit longer though, over 5 minutes. Very cinematic though, and sounds like it could be played like in some kind of action movie or something. It builds up the suspense quite well for what Cudi might have planned next. I can easily picture Cudi, the Moon Man, traveling around through space, exploring lands unknown, which I suppose is like the idea. And if so, then he pretty much got that down pretty nicely. The instrumental progresses through the track and changes the mood a bit, and it kind of evolves and progresses and whatnot in different ways, and the mood kind of changes throughout it. Like, it starts like suspenseful, it starts to feel more sadder, and it changes, and it's more spacey, and it's just like all over the place over the course of a little bit over like 5 minutes. And I'm like, whoa, yeah. Thanks to stuff like this, I could really see Cudi scoring movies at some point if he hasn't started doing that already. Because it was pretty interesting, very theatrical, very cinematic. Next up is track 10. This is the album closer, and a pretty haunting track. Cudi playing the guitar and singing about how he's a troubled boy and how troubled boys aren't wanted. Nobody wants a troubled boy, having to get stronger and get through the struggles and loneliness that come along with being a troubled person. Very relatable. Production-wise, it's once again quite sparse. Lyrically, quite repetitive. That's understandable, I suppose, as he's probably really trying to push the point home of being troubled. And he's really just trying to force that into your mind, like how troubled he is and how things are weighing heavily on him, which is once again a very relatable thing for me personally, at least. So I appreciate that. Perhaps the most telling part of the song, though, is at the very end, where he says goodbye, and abruptly you just kind of like hear a mic drop, and the song goes off. And this probably leads once again to his next album, like he typically has done for his previous albums and whatnot. So this is another track I'd put somewhere, I guess, towards the middle. It definitely did its job, but like I said, lyrically it was very repetitive. There wasn't much variation in it on that level. Overall, Satellite Flight, The Journey to Mother Moon is another album by Kid Cudi that covers the usual topics: depression, haters, love, and experimenting musically. It's his shortest album so far, and is more of him getting into his own as far as producing, as this album was produced almost entirely by himself, with some assistance from frequent collaborator, the producer, Dr. Genius. And I don't dislike this album, but some of it was just instrumentals and not much lyrically, so there's just not much to talk about on it sometimes, It's definitely, though, ranking lower on my personal list of how I would rank Cudi's albums. I mean, it definitely was, alright. The first half better than the second half, in my opinion. It includes one of my favorite all-time Kid Cudi songs ever, which is Satellite Flight, the title track. And, of course, great songs on there like Balmain Jeans and Going to the Ceremony, which I still listen to. And this album really, unfortunately for me, takes place in a further and further away, hip-hop sound. And that's not really what I like, typically. His first 2 or 3 albums, much more hip-hop sounding compared to this one. And, this is more experimental, so some people might prefer this one, and I understand that. This might be more your vibe compared to, Man on the Moon 1 or 2. But I don't know if this properly prepared people for the next album he will release back in 2015, which I will be getting into next time. So, once again, guys, that's all. This was Kid Cudi, Satellite Flight. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and follow the channel on Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter. Links in the description box below. Click the thumbs up button if you like the video, of course, because it helps. And feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions, comments, and whatnot about Kid Cudi, his music, different albums, songs, suggestions on what you want to see me review. All that good stuff. I'm here for it, guys. Also, feel free to reach out on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, and watch me live on Twitch when I stream. And, of course, as always, thank you for watching. Satellite Flight, Enigmatic Reviews, Enigmatic Entertainment. I'm out.